I never thought a casual Sunday dinner would change my life, but that's exactly what happened when I found that note tucked between the pages of my grandmother's recipe book. The house smelled like pot roast and cinnamon, Grandma Eleanor's signature, combination that always filled our family home in Portland. I'd flown in from New York 3 days ago after my social media agency had landed a major client. With 100,000 followers watching my every move, I'd built a modest empire documenting the intersection of family traditions and modern life. My followers loved the authenticity, the glimpses into real American family dynamics. If only they knew what was about to unfold. "Sophie, can you check if there's another bay leaf in Mom's recipe book?" Dad called from the kitchen, his voice carrying through the creaking floorboards of our colonial-style home. The leather-bound book sat on the shelf where it always had. As I flipped through the yellowed pages, something slipped out. A folded piece of parchment paper, edges worn with age. "I've hidden your inheritance where only the truly deserving will find it. When the dogwood blooms twice, look to where we said goodbye." My grandmother's handwriting was unmistakable, elegant cursive with a distinctive flourish on each capital letter. I stared at it, pulse quickening. Grandma Eleanor had passed 3 years ago, leaving the house to my father and her modest savings, split between him and my Aunt Meredith. There had never been mention of anything else. I did what any millennial with a significant social media following would do. I took a photo and posted it with the caption, "Just found this hidden note from my late grandmother about a secret inheritance. Family dinner just got interesting. Mystery note, hidden inheritance. Sophie, did you find it?" Dad's voice snapped me back to reality. "Coming!" I slipped the note into my pocket, grabbed the bay leaf and headed to the kitchen, my phone already buzzing with notifications. By the time we sat down to dinner, Dad, Mom, Aunt Meredith and my cousin Blake, my post had gone viral. I hadn't expected that. I'd been building my brand around authentic family moments, but this was different. This was private, yet the engagement was unlike anything I'd ever seen. "You've been on your phone all evening," Mom noted, passing the mashed potatoes. "Work emergency?" I hesitated. "Not exactly. I found something in Grandma's recipe book." The table fell silent as I pulled out the note. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "Where did you get that?" Aunt Meredith's voice was sharp. Her eyes narrowed. "It was in Grandma's recipe book. I just found it before dinner." I held it out. "Did you know about this?" Dad took the note with trembling hands. "Mom never mentioned any additional inheritance." "Well, she wouldn't have, would she?" Aunt Meredith snapped. "Always with her secrets and riddles." "What does it mean when the dogwood blooms twice?" Mom asked. "The dogwood in the backyard," Blake offered. He'd been quiet until now. "It blooms in spring, but sometimes it has a second bloom in fall if the weather's right." "And where we said goodbye?" I asked. Dad and Aunt Meredith exchanged looks. "Could be the hospital," Dad suggested. "Or the lake house," Aunt Meredith countered. "That's the last place we were all together before she got sick." My phone buzzed again, a direct message from a follower. My grandmother did something similar. It was her way of bringing the family together one last time. The journey was the real inheritance. I looked up from my phone to find everyone staring at me. "What?" I asked. "You posted it online, didn't you?" Aunt Meredith's voice was ice. "This family matter?" It was just a quick post. I didn't think." "That's right, you didn't think," she cut me off. "Everything is content for you, isn't it? Even our private family matters," Meredith, Dad said softly. She didn't mean any harm, but the damage was done. Dinner continued in uncomfortable silence, the only sound the scraping of forks against plates and the persistent buzz of my phone. Later that night, as everyone retreated to their rooms, I sat on the window seat in my childhood bedroom, scrolling through hundreds of comments. Some offered wild theories about what the inheritance might be. Others shared similar stories of family mysteries. A few criticized me for sharing something so personal. A soft knock at my door pulled me away from the screen. Dad entered, looking tired. "Hey, kiddo," he said, sitting beside me. "Quite a night, huh?" "I'm sorry about posting the note. I didn't realize it would blow up like this." He nodded slowly. "Your grandmother was always unconventional. She loved puzzles, mysteries. This is exactly the kind of thing she would do." Do you think there really is an inheritance? With Mom? Who knows? He smiled faintly. But I do know she wouldn't. Want this to drive a wedge between us all, especially you and Meredith, I nodded, guilt gnawing at me. I'll take the post down. Maybe wait, Dad said, surprising me. Your grandmother loved bringing people together. Maybe this mystery of hers could do that, in her own way. As Dad left, my phone lit up with a notification, a message from a user named Old Family Secrets. The dogwood blooms twice when the past and present collide. Check the foundation where roots run deep. I frowned. The account had no profile picture and had been created today. My hands shook slightly as I typed a reply. Who are you? The response came immediately. Someone who knows what Eleanor wanted you to find. Morning arrived with rain pattering against my window, and my post had over 50,000 likes. Hidden Inheritance was trending in several cities. I'd received messages from 3 podcast hosts and a producer from a true crime documentary series. This was spiraling beyond my control. Downstairs, the kitchen was empty, except for Aunt Meredith stirring her coffee with sharp, angry movements. Morning, I offered tentatively. She looked up, her expression softening slightly. Your post has caused quite a stir, I nodded, pouring myself coffee. I'm sorry, I should have asked before sharing something so personal. Yes, you should have, she sighed. But your grandmother would probably find this whole situation amusing. She always did have a flair for drama. I sat across from her. Dad said you two were at the lake house last. Meredith nodded. The summer before she got sick. We spent a week there. You were in Europe for that social media conference, remember? I did remember. I'd chosen a work opportunity over family. Time, something I'd done increasingly often as my online presence grew. A pang of regret hit me. We should go there, I suggested. To the lake house. If that's where you said goodbye, maybe that's what the clue means. Meredith considered this. Blake has a key, we could drive up today. By noon, we were packed into Dad's SUV, all 5 of us, heading to Lake Oswego. The 2-hour drive was filled with stories about Grandma Eleanor that I'd never heard before. Remember when she convinced the entire neighborhood that she'd won the lottery? Dad laughed. Had everyone doing favors for her for weeks before she admitted it was a joke. Or the time she accidentally invited 2 rival book clubs to her house on the same night, Meredith added. Said it was the most interesting discussion she'd ever hosted. She sounds like she was quite the character, Mom said. I wish I'd known her better. I stayed quiet, absorbing these stories, realizing how little I knew about my grandmother beyond the basics. I'd been so busy building my online persona that I'd missed collecting these real family stories. My phone buzzed with another message from Old Family Secrets. The lake holds memories, but not what you seek. The dogwood blooms where foundations meet earth. Who keeps messaging you? Blake asked, noticing my frown. Some weird account. They keep sending cryptic messages about Grandma's note. Let me see, he said, taking my phone. His eyes widened. Sophie, this account. Look at the profile picture. I hadn't noticed it before, but now there was an image, a faded photograph of a dogwood in bloom. When was that added? I whispered. The question is, who's behind it? Blake handed my phone back. Someone's playing games. The lake house came into view, a modest cabin with a wraparound porch overlooking the water. Memories flooded back. Summer barbecues, winter nights by the fire, Grandma Eleanor teaching me to fish, off the dock. It's been years, I murmured as we pulled into the gravel driveway. Inside, everything was exactly as I remembered. The mismatched furniture, the collection of lake-themed decor, the wall of family photos spanning decades. Where do we even start? Mom asked. The note said where we said goodbye, Dad reminded us. Meredith, where exactly were you when... On the dock, she said quietly. Mom wanted to watch the sunset one last time. We moved as a unit to the wooden dock extending into the lake. The water lapped gently against the posts, a peaceful rhythm contrasting with the tension we all felt. There's nothing here, Blakey said after we'd searched every plank. My phone buzzed again. Not where you said final goodbyes, where you first said goodbye to what matters most. This is getting creepy, Mom said, reading over my shoulder. How would anyone know these details? About your grandmother? A thought struck me. What if it's not about saying goodbye to Grandma? What if it's about something else entirely? Like what? Dad asked. I turned slowly, taking in the property. Grandma lived here first, right? Before moving to Portland when you and Aunt Meredith were kids? Dad nodded. This was her first home after marrying Dad. So she said goodbye to this place, I reasoned. To her first real home. The foundation, Blake said suddenly. The message mentioned foundations. What if it's literally in the foundation of the house? We hurried back, examining the perimeter of the cabin. The stone foundation was mostly hidden by bushes, including a dogwood, Aunt Meredith breathed. A young one. This wasn't here the last time we visited. Sure enough, a small dogwood tree had been planted near the rear corner of the house. Its branches were bare now in late fall, but there were a few determined buds clinging to the tips, a second, unseasonable bloom trying to emerge. When the dogwood blooms twice, I quoted. Dad knelt by the tree, brushing away years of fallen leaves around its base. His fingers found a seam in the foundation stones. There's something here, he said, working his fingers into the crack. With a scrape of stone against stone, a small section of the foundation moved, revealing a hollow space behind it. Inside was a metal box tarnished with age. The silence was deafening as Dad pulled it out. It wasn't locked. With trembling hands, he opened it. Inside was not gold or jewels or stock certificates. Instead, there was a stack of letters bound. With faded ribbon, a small leather journal, and an old photograph of Grandma Eleanor as a young woman, standing with a man who wasn't our grandfather. "Who is that?" I asked as Dad stared at the photo, his face pale. "I have no idea," he whispered. The kitchen table at the lake house became command central as we spread out the contents of the box. The letters were addressed to Eleanor from someone named Thomas, dated 1962, 5 years before she married our grandfather. "I never knew about any Thomas," Dad said, his voice strained. "Me neither," Aunt Meredith added, carefully unfolding one of the letters. "Mum never mentioned him." I picked up the leather journal, opening to the first page. Grandma Eleanor's handwriting filled the pages, entries dating back to her early 20s. April 15th, 1962. Thomas asked me to marry him today by the dogwood tree. I said yes, I've never been happier. I looked up, meeting Dad's eyes. She was engaged before Grandpa? Dad shook his head, clearly shocked. If she was, she never told anyone. I continued reading, skimming through entries that detailed a passionate romance, plans for a future together, dreams of the family they would build in this very lake house, which had belonged to Thomas's family. Then came an entry that made my breath catch. November 30th, 1962. Thomas is gone. The accident at the mill took him from me. I don't know how to live in a world without him. The house, the ring, none of it matters now. He died, I said softly, before they could marry. The next several entries were sparse, documenting Eleanor's grief. Then gradually they showed her rebuilding her life, meeting our grandfather, having Dad and Aunt Meredith, building a new life in Portland. But the final entry, dated just weeks before her death, revealed everything. I've kept Thomas's memory alive all these years, though few knew of him. The lake house was his gift to me, which I've now given to my children. But there's one last piece of him I've kept hidden, the ring he gave me and the letters that tell our story. These are my true inheritance, not for their monetary value, though the ring is worth a small fortune, but for the lesson they hold. Love is the only real wealth we possess. Share this truth, Sophie. You've always known how to tell a story. Tell this one. My name. She'd written my name, knowing somehow I would be the one to find this. Sophie? Mum's voice broke through my shock. What is it? I handed the journal to Dad, who read the final entry aloud. But how did she know Sophie would find it? Blake asked. Aunt Meredith smiled sadly. Because Sophie is just like her, always looking for the story, always documenting life. Eleanor saw herself in you, she said, turning to me. There's something else, Dad said, reaching into the box and pulling out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a ring, a stunning vintage diamond in an ornate setting. This must be worth, Blake began. That's not the point, I interrupted, understanding filling me. The inheritance isn't about the monetary value, it's about the story. I thought about my social media presence, how I'd commodified my family's moments, turning genuine connections into content. Yet here was Grandma Eleanor, entrusting me with something truly valuable, a real, raw, human story that no filter or clever caption could enhance. I need to take down that post, I said suddenly, reaching for my phone. Why? Aunt Meredith asked. I thought your online presence was everything to you. Not everything, I said firmly. Some things should remain private. Family things. Real things. As I deleted the viral post, a final message came through from Old Family Secrets. The real inheritance is in knowing when to share and when to treasure privately. Eleanor would be proud. Did anyone else get a message from this account? I asked, showing my phone around. Everyone shook their heads. Who do you think it is? Mom asked. I don't know, I admitted, but whoever it is knew Grandma Eleanor well. That evening we sat on the dock, watching the sunset just as Grandma and Aunt Meredith had done years before. The box of letters sat between us, a treasure more valuable than any financial inheritance could have been. What will you do with the ring? Dad asked me. Keep it safe, I said. Maybe wear it someday when I find a love worth commemorating. And the story, Blake prompted. I smiled, looking out over the lake where two lives had once planned a future together. Some stories aren't meant for social media. Some are just for us. As darkness fell, a notification appeared on my phone. A new follower. Eleanor's Legacy. The profile picture was a dogwood in full bloom. There was one post, a quote from what I recognized as one of Thomas's letters to my grandmother. The true inheritance we leave behind isn't measured in dollars, but in the love we share and the stories we create together. I showed it to my family, and we sat in comfortable silence, bound together by a story none of us had known until today, a story that had always been part of us. In the end, I did share one post about our discovery, but it wasn't what my followers expected. No dramatic revelations, no photos of the ring or the letters, just a simple message. Sometimes the greatest treasures are the stories we keep private. Signing off for a while to live life instead of documenting it, the real inheritance was the reminder of what matters most, a family first. It got fewer likes than anything I'd posted in years, and that felt exactly right.